Hey, Facebook fam, it's me, Bijal, here with Launch. I'm going to talk about Generation Z today. I've been doing a lot of research for a specific client of mine, and I wanted to come on here and share it out with you guys because I found it really interesting. I personally am on the cusp of being a millennial, and so I can see both the Generation X viewpoint, Generation Y's viewpoint, which is millennials. And then also, I'm very interested in this new Generation Z. I'm going to explain to you in today's live what you should be looking out for them, why they're super important in the online economy, especially, and how understanding them is really going to help set up your business for success. Because a business always needs to plan for its youngest merchant first, and then everyone kind of follows suit. So that's what we're going to dive in today, Generation Z and what you need to know about them. So let me know if you're here. Say, hey, Bijal, or hey, what's up? Tell me what your business might benefit from Generation Z or questions that you have. So, okay, the first thing we're going to talk about Generation Z. Who are they? So Generation Z is the one that came after millennials. I know, like we've been talking about millennials for so long that they've actually grown up and now there's a generation after them. So Generation Z is technically everybody who was born in 1998 and onward. So they are basically about 7 years old to 22 years old right now. The reason this is important for you is at 22 years old, they're just about to graduate college and actually enter into the workforce. That's a huge deal because even with them turning into the teenage years, their spending went way, 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 way up. So let me say hey to some people who are here. Hey, Tracy, what's going on, girl? Hey, Jesse, nice to see you on here on the live. Feel free to ask me any questions. I love talking about Generation Z. Maybe it makes me feel young. I don't know. But I think it's cool always to learn about how new generations view themselves and the unique identity that they're going to bring for the rest of us to learn. So one of the most important things about them is that they have an enormous buying power, spending power. So right now in 2020, they actually take up 40% of buying. 40% of spending is by Generation Z, which I don't know if you're like me, even that shocked me completely. I was like, what? 7 to 22-year-olds like spend this much money? But then I remember thinking back to when I was a teenager and I had a job at Old Navy and I'd be selling stuff and I made this paycheck and I pretty much would take my entire paycheck and rebuy stuff at Old Navy or buy stuff at the mall. And it kind of made more sense to me that as a teenager, you care so much about how you're dressed, how you look, like how you fit into the trends. Like it's all a time to form your identity and also to fit in with other people. So what's unique about Generation Z is obviously they were born in 1998. If I do have anybody who's watching who's on Generation Z, please like raise your hand just so I know. I've got a few friends from this generation, which I know I do. So they were actually born in 1998, meaning that they are complete digital natives. So compared to millennials, where we still had to learn and we still remember what life was like without cell phone and texting, they don't even remember that time. That time didn't exist, where there wasn't cell phones, where there weren't apps, where there wasn't online buying. Everything was already in play. And so they're completely used to being marketed online, which means the second you try to sell them something, even if you're like two-stepping or trying to hint at stuff, they know. They can smell it from a mile away. So one of their characteristics is that they really appreciate complete authenticity. I think that's why authenticity has become such a word. It started with millennials, but I think that Generation Z is making it even more pronounced because they're just tired of being like marketed to and sold to in that old-fashioned way, which if you're around me, if you're headed around 40, yes, we are kind of considered old-fashioned at this point in time. But we can learn what the trends are and adapt ourselves, and more importantly, adapt our company's brands to trend younger so we're continually attracting those people. That is our future. That is who sets the tone, and that's just how it works. I'm just here to deliver it. So what they enjoy is three things: being blunt. They enjoy being blunt. They don't want things beat around the bush. They don't like sugarcoating. They love being engaged with. So you can imagine with all of this social media, you've got Facebook, you've got TikTok, you've got Pinterest, you've got Snapchat, all of these modes of communication that are constant. They have to be engaged with. They take it as their place on the social ladder with how much their pictures are liked, how much they're commented on. And then the third thing is to be trustworthy. So back to the whole point of always being sold to their whole life, they kind of know all the gimmicks and they don't think it's cool anymore. So they value companies who are real and authentic to who their actual values are. And they demand that the companies that they spend money with have some type of social cause, whether it's to better the environment, the human race, to solve some kind of problem in society. You're not allowed to just be a really big company that's making money because that's what big businesses do. They're completely turned off by that. They need you to basically have a moral heart to your brand, which I find honestly really refreshing. I'm glad, and I want to see more of that, and I'm glad that we're being pushed in that direction. So I got Christina's on here, elder millennial. Doesn't sound sexy, but it's true. Elder millennial. At least we're not all the way to Generation X, right? So we can say that. So this brand, the millennials, are also differentiated from the pivotals. Millennials have different interests than Generation Z does. So it's a huge mistake to bucket these two groups together and think they have the same ideals. Generation Z is actually into working, and they're into creating a legacy. So they are into that. It's a little bit different than the millennials. And also they are more conscientious of their free time, but they do believe in working hard. So I know millennials kind of get a bad rap for that, but I think that they were pushing against Generation X that was obsessed with working. But with this new Generation Z is also called pivotals. They're also called the slash generations. If you want to know some of the cool terms, pivotals, slash generational, Gen Zers, all that kind of stuff. They are obsessed with being unique. So even though they want to be a part of a crew, they don't want to, they have a balance. They don't want to be lost in a crowd and be uniform, but they also don't want to be so unique that they're off on their own and nobody socially understands them. So they have to be different enough to create a persona for themselves that's uniquely them, but they also have to be accepted by their peer group. So for this group, being a part of a collective is extremely important. Who they're with, who they're seen with, and being accepted, like having their photos curated, having their stuff be liked, is all things that they really care a ton about. So they prefer being unique over actually being real. So they want to see themselves within your brands. So as you're moving forward and you're thinking about your brand, as Tracy's saying, don't pick on Generation X. All right, my bad. I picked on millennials too, if that's fair. All I'm saying, Tracy, is that there's a bunch of 7-year-olds and we've got to start marketing for them. So picture, I take this as a challenge. Picture a 7-year-old and say, what is this person going to be like in 10 years, in 20 years, when they're out and they're ready to buy my product? What is the type of person they're going to be like? What are they going to value? How can I speak and connect to that generation, even though that's not mine? And I think that there is a bridge of how we can do that authentically, but we have to take the time to actually understand them. Yeah, I know you're just playing with me, Tracy. So understanding them, I think, ends up forcing us to become more online present and to understand why it's so important. So the group we're talking about here has no problem going live. They have no problem taking videos and selfies. Like, selfies aren't funny to them. That's just like a normal part of their life. They take it all day in a billion different angles of their face. But the difference is that we might take like 5 and then be like, okay, here's a nice one, let's go. they probably take like 40 and then they use a photo editor app and then they paste it online. And if not enough people like it, then they start to get self-conscious and they get paranoid and they might take it down. So I think that that's kind of interesting that we've embraced being online and we have some forgiveness for what our appearance is, whereas this new generation Z cares even more about how they look, how they are presented, and what their identity is like online and offline. What this means to your business is they consider your brand an extension of who they are. So if that, let's say that they like buy a set of headphones from you, or they buy your services and your service provider, when they come online and say, hey, I used so and so to do this work, or I took so and so's study program, they want that to be a reflection of their own brand. So they don't care as much about who you think you are. They want to know, when I look at your brand, how is that going to help me and my social profile? How is that going to help me and my social status? So I think when you're planning anything you do, like I know Jesse helps teach English to anybody who's like at a higher level, so any language, it's like, I'm just going to use it as an example, Jesse, because I know what you do and it just clicked in for me, is that group wants to feel like they are a special part of a collective that they are a part of. And I don't know your business names, but like Swede Languages. And then when they join that, they're a part of a special club and they have a special Facebook group. And then maybe they get a pin for being there and that kind of thing. They want to have some social credibility to say they went with you, and then your company is hip as well. They also are probably looking for some opportunities to brand themselves while they're in your program, to say they're a part of it and what uniquely is them and what they brought to your program. So I think those are really interesting and kind of cool things to look out for. Like look at how we're being taught. So for them, one size fits all it doesn't work. Does not work. So I challenge you to take a look at your brand and see how can you humanize it, which I think is good for everyone. And I think this generation, I credit them for pushing us that way. Humanize your brand. I've always said that your brand is a person. It's a three-dimensional person, whether you know it or not. It is what people's images of you, what people believe in you, what the characteristics they attribute to you, and what they expect from you. So there's a lot at play here. So I think what we can start doing is practicing ways to connect with this generation, practicing ways to engage, showing our authentic selves, which means like having some bloopers, not looking perfect on every single live, even though they're obsessed with like looking a certain way, it just has to be curated. So if they look like they went jogging, that's okay, because that's a part of their like persona now. So I don't mean to be perfect. It's not meant to be like looking perfect all the time. It's meant to always be in the right type of persona. So like they might be a runner, then they might be somebody who enjoys lattes, then they might be a course creator, and then they might be somebody who likes to sketch outside. So like all of these different, and like an artist that way. So then they have all of these personas, and they may even turn on those personas only to specific channels. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting that Generation Z actually spends 5 more hours a day online compared to millennials, which is crazy. Like we only have 24 hours in a day. And another fact that's really interesting is they don't think they're obsessed with technology. They don't think that they are addicted. Technology just is what it is, and their mobile device is literally an extension of their hand. So we're at that point now in life and society, it's just an extension of their hand. There's actually a lot of reports in psychology studies and stuff like that where they're talking about this group of teenagers have like real palpable anxiety when their phone battery goes low. So I know I face that. So I don't know if I get to claim that I'm like Generation Z. David saying Generation Z sounds incredibly problematic. Why so? Tell me why you think they're problematic. I know that they're different for sure. And it's going to take some time for us to really understand them. and get what they're all about. But I mean, I'll wait for him to get back to me. But there's no there's no generation that didn't come with its own qualms. Every generation that's preceded us has made a case and differentiated themselves from the generation above. So it is just a natural part of growth, a natural part of the human race, to want to differentiate and to not do what your parents did. Basically, it's never been cool to do what your parents did, even in like the 1900s. So, yeah, Christina saying I'm relating to pivotals. I agree. I feel like I kind of get that generation. So maybe we're just younger at heart, Christina. But those are some things. So to recap, if you missed the beginning, this entire segment is for you to get a deeper grasp of what Generation Z is, which is born 1998 onward, 7 years old up to 22. Most importantly, they have just graduated, about to graduate college, and they have 40% of buying power, which is incredible. It's just really incredible. So now is the time in 2020 to start planning ahead and knowing where your brand should be going and where you should be trending. So what's important to them is being blunt, being engaging, and also being trustworthy. So those are really important things. And for themselves, as it relates to a brand, when they're looking at your brand, they just want to see themselves in it. They want to know what part of your brand helps convey their own social image. What can you do to customize it for them? That's where their expectations are. And that's how you can stay ahead of the curve when it comes to your competitors, because the old style marketing does not work for this crew. They see, like, they call bullshit from like a million miles away. So they'd rather have you be upfront, honest, and make it all about them, because that's what they care about. They want to be real, but they care more about being unique than being real. So authenticity is important, but they want to be unique. They want to cultivate who they are. So another thing that's interesting is, like, in our generations, when you turned like 16, you got your car. When you turned 18 and you were an adult, and you got to vote, and then you like turned, 21 and you could like drink liquor. Those are not important things for this generation. They're not looking to like adult. They're not looking for that transition from like child to tween to teenager to adult. They've been around. And so their street smarts and their maturity in that sense is way higher than ours was. And so they're not looking for that coming of age that has been so classic. And like even our historical, in all of our history, in our literary novels, all of that stuff, that's not important to them. What's important to them is that they continue to cultivate what their unique persona is. So I thought that was really interesting, to see this huge deviation and how technology played a part in that. All right, so let me get back to a couple more comments here, and then I'm going to wrap it up on Gen Z. David saying, because the emphasis on virtual reality and not real life. When the emphasis is on image and personal brand, it takes away from the human essence. Or at least personal brand not associated with business. Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're saying that like the obsession over being online versus actually being in life and with other people. I'm interested to see and learn more as this group is actually actively changing and hasn't become an adult yet. For most of the group hasn't yet. So I'm interested to see how they embrace technology and how they embrace one another. But I do see the fact that they care about social causes much more than any generation above them did. And they literally use their buying power to vote. I think that actually shows that, like, wow, they actually do support human beings and life, maybe differently than we did. So anyways, all right, guys, thank you for joining me. If you see me later, if you're watching today, hit me with #live, and let me know one fact that is important to you on Gen Z and what did you learn that you're going to apply to your business. But I challenge you to look through their perspective, because anytime we take on a new generation's perspective, we're just bettering ourselves and we're getting ourselves in the know. So yeah, so, and if you watch this later, please let me know with a #replay so I know you were here, and I will see you at the same time next week on Tuesday. Peace out. Take care.